Sunday, September 26th, 2021, 7:15 a.m., Green Guest House, Sept, Thailand. I have a funny story from the other day. After a morning walk around Sept, I got back to my guest house, changed into my usual comfortable shorts, made a cup of coffee, sat down on the bed, and began editing a video on my phone, as I often do. As with everything, I only have one pair of shorts. I always wear this pair of shorts and nothing else when I'm hanging out in my room. They're quite old, worse for wear, and should be replaced. But I never wear them in public, so it doesn't matter. They're just my hanging out in my hotel room shorts that I've had for years. In fact, I've had these same shorts since I left Taiwan many years ago, and for many years before that. Anyway, I'm lying there on the bed, head resting against two pillows, busy tapping away on my smartphone screen with my stylus, when I feel something really strange against my inner thigh. I jumped a mile high. It was such a strange feeling. And I look, and there's nothing there. Nothing at all. I concluded that maybe my skin just twitched or something. It was weird. So I went back to my little video project. Quite a bit of time passed, and then I felt something again. I jumped again. This time I jumped right out of bed. I figured there had to be something crawling around on my body, but I couldn't see anything. I took off my shorts and looked everywhere. I turned them inside out and searched every pocket and every inch of fabric. There was nothing in my shorts. I took the sheet off the bed and flapped it wildly to shake out any poisonous creature that might be hiding in there. Nothing. I was feeling weird about all this, but since I wasn't able to find anything, I just put the shorts back on and lay back down on the bed. I felt nothing for a long time, and eventually I forgot about the incident. And then I felt it again, stronger than ever. It wasn't like a cockroach on my skin. I know what that feels like. It wasn't like a beetle crawling between leg hairs and tickling me. This was something big and strong. I'd had enough of the mystery at this point, and I whipped off the bed sheet again and shook it strongly. I searched the whole bed. Nothing. I took off my shorts and searched them. I flapped them hard. Nothing fell out. What was going on? And then I went over my shorts carefully, inch by inch, feeling with my fingers. And this time, I felt a large lump. I couldn't see anything, but I could feel something. Whatever it was inside the bottom hem. I looked around, and I saw that the thread holding the hem closed had come loose at one point, and there was an opening into the hem. Essentially into the interior of my shorts, between the layers of fabric. And I assumed that one of the big millipedes had come inside my room and then found this opening and worked its way into the inside of the material of my shorts. But how to get this creature out? I had no idea. It's not like I could force it to back up and go back to the opening and crawl out the way it came in. I eventually decided I had no choice but to cut open the shorts. I got out a pair of scissors, and I cut through the hem at the front of this creature to give it an exit. And what came out? A large gecko. How such a big lizard managed to cram itself into that space in my shorts, I couldn't tell you. But now it all made sense. Particularly the sensation of something big moving against my skin. This was definitely a new experience for me. I've woken up with a gecko sitting on my face and on my head before. I've woken up with a spider on my face, on my head, a cockroach on my face and on my head. But I've never had a gecko actually inside the hem of my shorts before. This gecko adventure happened a couple of days ago, and that leaves yesterday to account for. Not much happened yesterday. As always, I had rough plans to take a quick scooter trip to Sukhothai. Will I ever make it to Sukhothai? The thing is that I have to be in Mesot on October 1st to return to immigration. And if I left on Sunday morning, right now in fact, I would have enough days to make an interesting journey to Sukhothai and make it back. So I spent yesterday morning preparing for that. I cleaned the bathroom and my room. I took out the garbage and cleared out the fridge. And then I went out to find an ATM to get some money for the trip. And that's when things started to fall apart. I've had good luck with the Bangkok bank, so I went there first. Unfortunately, all the Bangkok bank ATMs were down for servicing. I couldn't use them. So I went to the Siam bank, and their ATM ate my card. It accepted my card, and I punched in all the appropriate numbers to withdraw some money. But then I got a kind of error message, and the ATM just froze. Nothing happened. I waited and waited and waited, but nothing happened. I thought maybe it was waiting for me to hit a confirmation button, so I hit the enter button, but nothing happened. I started to worry that my debit card was gone forever. In the end, I had no other option but to try to cancel the transaction, and to my relief, that worked. I hit cancel, and the transaction was canceled, and the ATM ejected my card. I then went to a third bank, and the ATM accepted my card and didn't freeze. But I got an error message saying that this ATM only issued 100 baht notes, and it was unable to issue the 10,000 baht I was asking for. That would consist of 100 baht notes, and it could only issue 30 actual banknotes at a time. So that ATM was a dead end as well. And then it started to rain heavily. I checked the forecast, and it was calling for more heavy rains for Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. I took all of this as a sign from the universe that I was not meant to be scootering to Sukhothai this week, and I abandoned my plans for going there. I guess I will just hang out in Mesot this week until my Friday trip to immigration. I just checked the forecast right now, and not surprisingly, it is calling for a 100% chance of rain for today. And it is raining heavily outside as I type. Interestingly, starting on Wednesday, there is a major shift in the weather forecast. Perhaps we are approaching a change. For many, many months, the verbal description of the weather forecast has never changed. It always has read the same thing: thundery showers. That's all I've seen for as long as I can remember. But on Wednesday of this week, it changes to the magical sounding sunny intervals. The forecast for Thursday and Friday also reads sunny intervals. On Saturday, we return to thundery showers. But after that, there are more calls for sunny intervals. There is even a day in there on which they are predicting sunny intervals with a gentle breeze. My gosh, could the rainy season finally be ending? I've never had to endure a rainy season like this before in my life. Combined with the pandemic, this rainy season has created a gloom unlike anything I've ever experienced. I'll be very glad to see it end. The rest of yesterday was spent working on some insanely long and detailed technology videos. For a YouTube video, they are really stupid, and I'm fully aware of that. But I think I'm going to finish them and post them anyway. And I'm planning to finally create my new Gear and Technology channel. Maybe I'll post these videos to that channel. And then if someone wants to ridicule me for making such a ridiculously long tech video, at least it will be on an actual tech channel. The first video is about unboxing and reviewing the media mod for my GoPro Hero 9. A typical unboxing video on YouTube should be about 10 minutes long. Mine is 43 minutes long. It's more like a journal entry than an actual video. I treat the unboxing like a personal experience, and then I go over the media mod in excruciating detail with all my thoughts. And then, believe it or not, I made a second video about the media mod. I guess I didn't cover all the points I wanted to make in the first video. In fact, my intention with this second video was to make a short and punchy video. But when I shot that video, I was in a great mood. I had just woken up and I was full of energy, and I ended up talking about the media mod for an hour and a half. It was more of a rant, actually, and kind of a thesis on poor design. The third video is an unboxing of my new camera, the DJI Pocket 2. That one is currently sitting at 1 hour and 4 minutes in length. But it is also not a traditional unboxing. It is more of a personal Doug-style odyssey. On top of those 3 videos, I have 3 more hour-long videos in which I compare 2 Android-based video editing apps. I made those videos months ago, but I never dared post them to my normal YouTube channel. They were so tech-heavy and so weird that they didn't really belong on my regular YouTube channel. I kept intending to make my gear and technology channel and post them there, but I just never got around to doing it. And this comparison between these 2 apps is so insanely detailed and specific that I was reluctant to post them anywhere. I'm having a lot of fun with my new camera. During the 2 hours that I was waiting for a friend out in the parking lot one day, I actually got out the DJI Pocket 2 and did an in-depth series of audio tests. I was testing all the various microphone options to see which I liked best. I had no intention of making a YouTube video about it. It was just for my own benefit to do all these tests. But now I'm thinking that I will recreate that experience and make an actual video about the DJI Pocket 2's audio options. And I'll make a bunch more about all the things I learn about the DJI Pocket 2. I thought maybe I could make a dedicated series of such videos and call the series Learning Curve. The idea would be to document my learning curve as I learn new things about the camera. I always tend to approach social media in that way. The more normal and standard approach would be to make an official tutorial video. People make videos in which they teach other people how to use this or that camera. But my tendency and my preference is to approach everything more from a journal keeping or storytelling style and point of view. I always tend to approach social media in that way. The more normal and standard approach would be to make an official tutorial video. People make videos in which they teach other people how to use this or that camera. But my tendency and my preference is to approach everything more from a journal keeping or storytelling point of view. Instead of making a tutorial video about using a microphone with the Pocket 2, I'd rather make it more informal and more personal and just talk about my own experiences as I try out different microphone options. That's why my videos end up being so long. Monday, September 27th, 2021, 6:30 a.m., Green Guest House, Sept, Thailand. I continued to learn about my new camera, the Pocket 2. While I was doing that, I came up with an idea or concept for my YouTube technology channel, assuming I find or create the time to make it. I thought I would call it The Learning Curve or Planet Doug's Learning Curve, and the tagline would be something like, "When I learn, you learn." The idea is that I'm often learning about new technologies and new cameras and new gadgets. I'm basically on my own steep learning curve all the time, and I thought I could give my technology channel its own twist by incorporating that idea into the videos. Basically, I'd film myself as I'm learning about a new camera, and I'd make that learning process the video. This as opposed to a standard YouTube tutorial or review video. And I like the tagline, "When I learn, you learn." I like YouTube channels that have an opening line like that. There's a YouTube camera reviewer who calls himself and his channel the Everyday Dad. And his tagline is, "If I can figure it out, you can figure it out." I always like that. This approach allows him to be casual. He doesn't present himself as a camera expert. He's just an everyday dad, a normal guy. And he says that if he can figure out how to use this fancy new camera, then you can figure it out. It's disarming and self-deprecating. I often do similar self-deprecating things in my videos by, for example, calling myself a dummy. And the whole premise behind Planet Doug is this idea that I live in my own special world where strange things can happen. My learning curve approach would be the same in that it would fit in well with my casual tone. Rather than pretending to be an expert in photography, I'd just be this dummy who got a new camera and I'm fumbling around with it and trying to get to know it and learn how to use it. And I could make videos throughout the process as I climb up my own learning curve. And as I learn about this new camera, the people watching my videos could learn about it with me. I also like the name The Learning Curve, or Planet Doug's Learning Curve, because it is all-encompassing. A name like Planet Doug's Gear and Technology restricts the channel to just gear and technology topics. But if you use the expression learning curve, that opens the door to making videos about anything. The YouTube channel could evolve into something completely different. I could be learning about science, or learning to speak Thai, or learning how to cook. And I could make videos about that if I wanted to, and it would still fit under the name Learning Curve. Learning Curve can apply to anything in the same way that Planet Doug can. I like the simplicity of just The Learning Curve as a name, but I also like Planet Doug's Learning Curve because it connects the channel to the rest of my social media world. I'd have my original and main Planet Doug channel, and this would be the Learning Curve branch of that. My idea is that the name of the channel could be the full Planet Doug's Learning Curve, but when talking about it, I just refer to it as the Learning Curve. I was thinking that I could open each video this way. Welcome to the Learning Curve. I'm Doug, this is my planet, and when I learn, you learn. All accompanied by the appropriate hand gestures. I spent some time yesterday with my eyes closed and mentally collecting words that can be used in combination with learning curve. Everyone says steep learning curve, of course, but I wanted to create a list of all the possible words that can be used to talk about a learning curve. To be honest, the expression learning curve isn't the best when it comes to word association, but I was able to come up with a satisfying list to start with. But I'm starting to see that if I really want to continue my little YouTube existence, I have to be more efficient with my time. I don't have nearly enough time in a day to do all the things I want to do. It might be impossible to make travel style videos and technology videos. There just isn't enough time in my life. Wednesday, September 29th, 2021, 4:30 a.m., Green Guest House, Sept, Thailand. I had an interesting day yesterday. The main part of the day started with a trip to the Lucky Tea Garden for breakfast. It's open again. I love that place. I had a big Burmese-style breakfast, chickpeas with onions, roti, potato curry, beef curry, and milk tea. I felt so much better afterwards. And I took advantage of my walk to the restaurant to continue testing a new mapping and tracking app I discovered called Relive. Instead of taking my scooter to the Lucky Tea Garden, I went there on foot and I recorded my journey using Relive. My idea was to test out a bunch of the features, and then later in the day I was going to make my very first learning curve video about this Relive app. So as I walked, I stopped from time to time to take a picture or a video clip. These would be added to the Relive 3D animated map later on. I also tested out the pause feature. With pause, you can stop recording with the app for a period of time and then resume afterwards. And that makes sense because the app records physical movement. There is no point recording your movement while you sit inside a restaurant for an hour having a meal. So you pause the app when you stop for a long time. And then when you start walking again, you hit resume and the app begins recording again. In order to complete a full test, I continued walking for a couple of kilometers and made my way through the main market. I love spending time there. It's so active and full of life, even during this pandemic. I had one Planet Doug-style encounter during this walk. This illustrates the kind of thing that always happens on Planet Doug. It happens all the time to me because I'm such a dummy. I was walking along, holding my smartphone in my hand, when a man at the side of the street called out to me. 99.9% of the times when this happens, the person is from Myanmar. Thai people don't often interact with me. And this man was clearly from Myanmar. He was a youngish guy and relatively well dressed in a clean pair of shorts and t-shirt. I didn't know why he called out to me, but when I walked up to him, he indicated his young son beside him. I couldn't tell you how old the boy was, but he was young, not quite a toddler, but not quite a fully formed evil boy yet, a cute, friendly kid. And the father seemed to want his son to have the experience of saying hello to a foreigner in English. This happens all the time too, as parents eagerly push their children forward to practice the English they learned in school, and they look on proudly. In this case, the kid and I exchanged hellos and waves, and then we gave each other a high five. And then after smiling at the man and being as friendly as I could without being able to actually speak to him, I said goodbye and continued on my way to the Lucky Tea Garden just up the street. I had my breakfast, and then I resumed the Relive app and left the restaurant. And just outside the restaurant, I ran into the same man and his son. He greeted me again, but this time it suddenly became clear that he was asking for money. That's why he had called out to me the first time. And that's why he had pushed his son forward. He was using his son to illustrate his need for money. He needed money to take care of his children. And his son wasn't holding out his hand for a high five. He was holding out his hand, as his father taught him to do, to ask for money. And I had completely misunderstood. I can only imagine how dumb this man thought I was after our first encounter. He was asking me for money, and he indicated his son to emphasize his need. And what does this dummy foreigner do? He gives his son a high five and walks away. This time, he decided to be more clear, and he pointed at his son, and then he made eating motions to indicate that he needed money for food. Hopefully, he thought, this dude from Planet Doug wouldn't be so obtuse this time. And this time, I understood. I gave him 100 baht, did my best to smile and be friendly, and then he moved on. This has been happening more and more in 2021. In the past, I really didn't run into people asking for money in Sept or in Thailand in general. But since the coup in Myanmar, there has been an increase in refugees, and with the pandemic, people are in trouble. Much later in the day, I had a second encounter like this. I was making my Relive learning curve video, and a woman on a bicycle stopped to chat with me. She was also clearly from Myanmar. I can easily tell by how people look, dress, speak, and behave. I couldn't get all the exact details of her situation, but she explained to me that she was very sick, and she had just come from the hospital, but she didn't have enough money for the medicine she needed. She said that the medicine cost about 1,000 baht, and she opened her wallet to show me that she had 800 baht or so. She was 200 baht short, and she was going home without the medicine she required. And could I help her out? So I gave her the 200 baht. I wish we could have spoken more, but her English was just good enough to get across the details of her situation, but no more than that. We tried to chat, but I didn't really understand much more, and we fell into a series of smiles and friendly gestures and goodbyes. And then she turned her bike around and started riding back in the direction she had come from, presumably to return to the hospital to get the medicine that she could now afford. She had heavy bandages over one hand and one arm, but beyond that, I wasn't able to figure out what illness or injury she might have had. My Relive Learning Curve video turned into a bit of a monster, I'm afraid. I was hoping to keep things short and snappy, but it kind of spiraled out of control. I do tend to babble on. And I love to go into things in depth. I like to cover all the details of whatever it is I'm talking about. My idea is also to complete these videos out in the real world as much as possible. I'm often annoyed with camera reviewers on YouTube because they do their reviews inside their studios, basically in a perfect environment. It's perfectly lit, it's perfectly cool, and it's perfectly quiet and spacious. But testing a camera or microphone in those situations is not representative of how this stuff actually gets used. It's one thing to test a microphone inside your quiet studio. I need to hear how it sounds when you are out on the street near traffic or inside a busy market or restaurant. With that perspective, I want to shoot as much of my videos outside in the real world as possible. And I thought that approach would help make my videos a bit special. Everyone shoots their videos inside nice studios. It would be different and unusual to be outside and surrounded by Thailand while talking about an Android app. There were 3 stages to this learning curve video experience. Stage 1 was just sitting down and talking into the camera and describing what the Relive app is all about and how you use it. Stage 2 was going for a walk around Sept and actually demonstrating using the app in real life. And stage 3 was demonstrating on my phone how you complete your project and produce the final 3D animated movie. And with all of that to do, as I said, the video spiraled out of control and became a monster. For stage 1, I sat outside at a crazy kind of table beside the canal here in Sept, out in the full force of a brutal sun, which decided to make an appearance. This table is a solid piece of granite with some old trees slammed into place roughly as benches. Garbage is strewn around everywhere. Some local homeless guys, maybe alcoholics and drug addicts, tend to hang out there, particularly at night, and they often have bonfires there out in the open. I often end up sitting there myself because any kind of table or bench is in very short supply in Thailand. I'm always keeping my eyes open for anywhere that I can sit down at all. Forget about comfort or cleanliness. And for this video, I was using my brand new DJI Pocket 2. So in fact, I was deeply immersed in 2 learning curves. I was learning how to use the Relive app. That was the subject of the video. But I was filming that with a new camera that I barely knew how to use, and I constantly made mistakes and struggled. I really should have used a GoPro, a camera that I'm very familiar with, but I'm so excited by the Pocket 2. In stage 2, I went for a walk around Sept. That was exhausting and stressful as well, because I was using the Relive app on my phone, but I was also carrying the Pocket 2 in my hand and trying to film the experience at the same time. And I was making my very first learning curve video, something I'd never done before. And I had to remember to constantly take screenshots with my phone for illustration purposes later on. And I had no idea what I was doing. I was making it up as I went along. It was during this walk that I encountered the woman on her bicycle that needed money for medicine. Stage 3 took place back in the relative comfort of my guest house room, but that involved yet another extreme learning curve. To record how to actually process all the data from Relive and create the 3D movie, I needed to use a screen recording app on my smartphone and record high-quality audio and manipulate my phone using a Bluetooth-connected mouse, all at the same time. And that involved another very steep learning curve as I had to figure all that out. The technical challenges were extreme. By the time I was done, I was a mental and physical wreck. I had unknowingly set myself a very challenging video project. And believe it or not, that was just the beginning of the process. All of that was just about recording the raw video, audio, and pictures that I need for the final video. I still have to copy all of those files onto my phone or this MacBook. And then I have to import all of that material into a video editing application and spend a lot of hours editing it and putting it all together with music and graphics. And then I will have to export the final video, review it, create a thumbnail for it, write a description and title and tags, and then upload the video to YouTube. To be honest, it's too much. It's crazy to do all that. Luckily, I enjoy it. But enjoying it doesn't make it any less exhausting or time-consuming. And unfortunately, I can already tell that the final video will be pretty bad. It's unfortunately going to be too long, too boring, and too clunky and awkward. My original idea, as I said, was to make something short and snappy and fun, but it didn't work out that way. A video like this should be 12 minutes long at most, and the raw video I have is over an hour long. And nobody wants to sit through an hour-long video tutorial about an obscure Android app. My vision for the learning curve is to make the standard 12-minute videos that I keep dreaming about. And I hope to do it by dividing any particular learning curve into small pieces. For example, I want to document my learning curve for this Pocket 2 camera. But I won't make one long video about the camera. I'll make short videos, perhaps 10 of them at a minimum, and each one will be 12 minutes long and focus on just one aspect of the camera. So I'm thinking of it as a series of short tutorials. I have to sit down and organize my thoughts about the Pocket 2 so that I can divide up all of its features and controls into small bites. And I will make a separate video about each byte. For example, the Pocket 2 has 5 physical buttons. I will make one video about just those buttons and what they do. The Pocket 2 also has a gimbal with 4 gimbal modes. I will make one video as I learn about those 4 modes. I'll make another video about just the settings menu. I'll make another about the microphones and recording audio, and on and on. That's the theory anyway. 10:30 a.m. I just got back from an errand run. I'm still thinking about going on my scooter trip to Sukhothai. I could embark on that journey after I get my visa stamp on Friday, and for that, I still need cash. I tried to get some cash again the other day during my Relive test walk to the Lucky Tea Garden. This time, the Bangkok Bank ATMs were operational. However, they were not operational for me. And I got the dreaded error message telling me in the vaguest terms that I needed to contact my bank. I've learned through experience, however, that there really is no need to contact my bank. That's just a standard message they throw up when anything goes wrong. So this morning, I decided to return to the big Tesco Plaza where I can stock up on some essentials and visit a range of banks. Oddly enough, there is a large branch of the Bangkok Bank at Tesco as well, and I went to their ATMs first, and not to my surprise, it worked fine and I was able to withdraw money. That's the weird thing about the modern world. It's nutty. The ATMs at one Bangkok bank in the town rejected me, but the same transaction at an ATM at a different Bangkok bank in the same town was successful. I got no error messages, no message that I needed to contact my bank. Same bank, same town, same transaction, same bank card, but one ATM hates me and the other one loves me, and no one would ever be able to tell me why. I don't have any grand plans for the rest of today. It's actually very nice and sunny outside, but I have so many technology projects on the go that I don't imagine I will be outside doing exciting things. Despite the sunshine, this will be a largely inside day. I'm also quite tired again, so I don't feel the urge to immerse myself in the life of the country out there. I recently watched the first episode of a new sci-fi show called Foundation. It is, of course, based on the famous book series by Isaac Asimov, a series that I read long ago when I was in high school. The first episode was fantastic for a sci-fi dude like me. I was enthralled. As soon as it was over, I started at the beginning and watched the whole thing a second time. And then when I was making dinner last night, I watched it a third time. The visuals were stunning, I thought, and the storytelling was excellent as well. I don't know if the series can keep that up, but it is off to a good start. Thursday, September 30th, 2020, 5:10 a.m., Green Guest House, Mae Sot, Thailand. Oddly enough, when I woke up out of my dreams this morning, I found myself thinking about this new camera, my Pocket 2, and I started mentally framing a learning curve video about the camera's various control buttons. Welcome to the learning curve. I'm Doug. This is my planet, and when I learn, you learn. Today, I'm learning about all the control buttons on the DJI Pocket 2 camera. There are actually 6 control buttons for the camera in total, and I got out of bed this morning with the goal of learning what the official name for each button is, and then assembling my thoughts about the function of each button. That might be my first official learning curve video for the DJI Pocket 2. My goal is to make the video no more than 12 minutes long. 12 minutes is my new mantra for the learning curve. I'm a big fan of the number 12. I've thought a lot about the base 12 numbering system. It is kind of a touchstone for me in terms of thinking about life. What I mean is that I find it fascinating that, as humans, we simply assume that the way we count is part of the natural order. I've tried to explain to people about base 10 and base 12 numbering systems, but few people are ever able to fully grasp it. And that's understandable. We struggle to grasp the idea that our numbering system is an invention. Everyone assumes that the idea of 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, 1 million is a law of nature, and that there is no other way to count. But of course, base 10 numbering is a human invention. We could just as easily be using a base 12 numbering system. In fact, base 12 is superior. People get hung up on this idea that decimal shifting from 10 to 100 to 1000 is part of base 10 numbering. And they argue that to count by 12 instead of 10 would be confusing and difficult because we can't use the decimal shifting technique anymore. But that's not true. What they don't understand is that in base 12, we could still use 10, 100, 1000, etc. That wouldn't change at all. It's just that the actual number of items represented by 10 would be greater. In base 12, the written character 10 would still be the same, and 10 times 10 would still be 100, but the actual number of items represented by 10 and 100 would be greater. And that really makes no difference at all. Those values are just arbitrary, and we can change it to anything we want. But that is such a difficult concept for people to grasp. All we'd really need to do is invent 2 extra symbols and values to fit in between 1 and 10. If I were in charge of the planet, I'd switch the whole world to a base 12 numbering system tomorrow. This is on my mind right now because I've watched the first 2 episodes of the new sci-fi series Foundation. And in the second episode, the main character discusses the base 12 numbering system. It was a fascinating discussion. In the show, they were talking about putting together an archive of all human knowledge. And the assumption, of course, was that everything would be counted using base 10. That's what all the people in this meeting used. But our main character pointed out that this was just a random circumstance. There was no reason that they had to use base 10. In fact, hundreds of worlds in their galaxy used a base 12 numbering system, and base 12 was actually superior. But the other people in the meeting were just puzzled. They didn't really understand what she was getting at. And what she was really getting at was that the people in power, the people in the central worlds, just assumed that base 10 was part of the natural order because it is the system that they used. Other worlds, hundreds of worlds, actually used base 12. Anyway, the show got me thinking about the number 12, and my brain settled on this idea that making the learning curve videos 12 minutes long was a fun and interesting idea. I should certainly make an effort to stop making hour-long videos. Of course, I can still talk about the DJI Pocket 2 camera for hours if I want to. I can talk about it for 5 hours. But instead of posting a 5-hour video or 5 one-hour videos, I can make and post 25 12-minute videos. People are much more likely to enjoy watching a 12-minute video than a 1-hour video. Friday, October 1st, 2021, 6:45 a.m., Green Guesthouse, Sept, Thailand. Just now, I woke up from a very pleasant dream that I remember quite clearly. I mention that because I don't want to give the impression that I always have horrifying stress dreams. In this dream, I was sitting in a large restaurant booth with 2 YouTuber reactors sitting across from me, the brothers Greg and JB. They each have a popular YouTube channel where they post videos of themselves reacting to and discussing movies, movie trailers, and TV shows. Greg was sitting on the right, and Jabi was sitting on the left. But every time I turned to look at Greg or talk to him, I'd turn back to find out that Jabi had turned into someone else. A completely different person was sitting there. It was very surprising and funny, but I did something that I tend to also do in real life. I just pretended not to notice. I knew that it was a trick. Greg and Jabi had planned this joke, and I knew in the dream that a bunch of people were actually sitting underneath the table on the other side, and every time I looked at Greg, Jabi would duck down and a different person would sit up in his place. And they did it so fast and so well that I never saw the change. It really was an astonishing trick, but I didn't react to it at all, and I pretended nothing unusual was happening. In real life, if someone does a magic trick in front of me, I don't generally react with astonishment and run around and get excited. After all, I know it's a trick. It's not actual magic. In the case of Greg and Jabby and the dream, I did the same thing. But this went on for a long time, and suddenly, each new person that popped up was holding a different, very fluffy white puppy. And I couldn't help myself, and I fell over with hysterical laughter. I rolled around and laughed in delight, and all the people and all the puppies that were under the table came up, and they all sat on the booth bench opposite me, and we all laughed for the longest time until I woke up. It was a delightful dream. An interesting thing is that I've never seen Greg and Jabby together. They have separate YouTube channels. Jabby reacts with his girlfriend Achara Kirk, and Greg reacts with another guy and other people. I only know they are brothers from them saying so in their videos. So I had no reason to physically put them together in my dream other than the knowledge that they were brothers. I've never seen them together in a YouTube video in real life. Normal people populate their dreams with friends and family members. I apparently populate mine with YouTubers. I have a bunch of tasks for today. The first and most important, of course, is to go to immigration. I'll leave the guest house around 8:45, I think, and after that, I have a range of things I'm going to do. As far as yesterday went, my main accomplishment was to test the audio in my new DJI Pocket 2 camera. This is something I needed to do for myself as part of getting to know how this camera works. And I recorded the whole process as a learning curve video. And it worked out quite well. My penchant for organizing is on clear display in this video. I often watch similar videos on YouTube as people test certain cameras, and I'm always frustrated at how poorly they do it and how incomplete their tests are. They always leave questions unanswered. Based on that experience, I made sure to organize my tests so that I wouldn't be open to the same criticism. With that in mind, I prepared a list of the 7 possible microphone configurations that I wanted to test. 1, the DJI Pocket 2 built-in microphones. 2, the lavalier mic plugged into the do-it-all handle. 3, the DJI Creator Combo wireless mic by itself. 4, a lavalier mic plugged into the DJI wireless mic. Number 5, the Rode Wireless Go in 3 different configurations, low, medium, and high decibel output. 6, a shotgun mic plugged into the do-it-all handle. And 6B, the shotgun mic, but much closer to my mouth. My plan was to test each of these microphones by reading a prepared script. The script would be nearly identical so as to be better able to hear the difference between the microphones. And I would do the recording in the exact same place and in the exact same way. I also took photographs of each setup at the time so that I could insert these photographs into the video later on. I also prepared title cards for each video sequence, clearly identifying which microphone I was testing. However, I also had to repeat this test in different environments based on how I shoot my actual YouTube videos. I'm not sure I have a complete list yet, but I'm assembling a list of what I'm calling shooting environments. And I will do a test of all 7 microphones in each of these environments. So far, I've got 1, a quiet environment outdoors, 2, a quiet environment indoors, 3, a noisy environment outdoors, such as traffic, 4, a noisy environment outdoors, such as a big market, and 5, a noisy environment indoors, like a restaurant. The end result is that I will do 45 separate microphone tests spread out over 5 unique locations. And I will post the tests in 5 separate 12-minute learning curve videos, all clearly labeled and with illustrative photographs. Yesterday, I completed the first one, Quiet Environment Outdoors. I was relatively pleased with the results. I went to one of the sections of canal here in Sept. There is no traffic noise at all there, and I was the only person there. It was the perfect place to conduct a microphone test in what was supposed to be a representative, quiet place outdoors. Today, I will test the 7 microphones inside my room at the guest house as a quiet environment indoors. And if I have time, I will do a test on Sept's busy downtown street in the afternoon as a noisy environment outdoors with traffic. To be honest, those 3 tests would be enough for me. The final 3 probably would be unnecessary if I get clear results from the first 3. I'm mainly interested in how the microphones sound indoors and on a busy street with traffic. Once I know that, I will be able to choose which microphone to use most of the time. So, that will be part of my day. Saturday, October 2nd, 2021, 4:30 a.m., Green Guest House, Sept, Thailand. My most important task from yesterday was to get my visa stamp at the immigration office. That errand went smoothly. I rode my scooter there, of course. The office is 6 or 7 kilometers away. I remember that in my pre-scooter days, getting to the office was more challenging. I have no problem walking that distance, but it is along a busy highway, and I dislike arriving at a government office hot and sweaty. Plus, there was always the risk of being sent away to get another document, and then I would be faced with a long walk back into town and then walking back again. That could take up an entire day. I sometimes took a taxi or a motorcycle taxi, but that involved a lot of complicated arrangements and discussions and disagreements over the price, and it was stressful. Using my scooter is so much better. The clerks at the immigration office know me quite well. We don't need to exchange words anymore. I simply handed over my passport, opened to the correct page. They processed me within minutes, and I was out the door in short order. There is a nice coffee shop near the immigration office. They have a large table outside, and I plan to sit there and record a conclusion to my quiet outdoors environment microphone testing video. That went well. However, I went a bit crazy in terms of talking about the microphones. There was a lot of information I could convey, and perhaps I went too far. The actual testing of the microphones edited down nicely to about 10 minutes, and I thought that a 2-minute conclusion would round it out nicely to my goal of 12 minutes. I would simply say which microphone I liked best and which produced the best quality audio in that environment. But that felt incomplete, and I found myself expanding on all the things I had learned about each microphone, and not just about the audio quality. And that discussion quickly became 10 minutes long. My final video overshot my 12-minute goal by 8 minutes. My coffee was disappointing. It wasn't hot. That often happens, and it usually means the coffee shop has lost me as a customer forever. I can't return and risk a lukewarm coffee. This fact is mainly why I keep returning to BK Coffee and Beer. They consistently serve their latte piping hot. I noticed later on that the audio levels in my conclusion video were quite low, and my voice sounded thin and unpleasant. Not only that, a lot of annoying background noise was recorded. I think it sounds awful. Considering how much I had been testing microphones, you'd think I'd do a better job. But I was trying to convince myself that the built-in microphones are better than they actually are. It would be so convenient to use them all the time, and I was trying to will them into being acceptable. But my will was unable to overcome the reality that the tiny microphones built into small cameras are never as good as an actual lavalier microphone connected by a physical wire. I also suspect that in all of my testing, I had accidentally left the microphone recording volume at a low setting. In fact, this is why I am awake so early. I woke up and I started thinking about that microphone setting. I don't truly understand that aspect of this camera yet, and I want to solve that mystery right away. So my first goal for today, therefore, is to investigate this and settle the question of how this particular microphone control setting operates. I won't be able to return to sleep until I master this information. I was so disappointed by my coffee at that first coffee shop that on my way back to my guest house, I pulled into BK Coffee and Beer for a second coffee experience. And since I was there and the place was empty, I decided that BK would serve as a good environment for another microphone test. I thought it could serve well for my test of a quiet indoors environment. I completed the test, but I don't think I will be able to use it for a learning curve video. A number of technical problems cropped up. Plus, I felt inhibited. I needed to raise my voice considerably for this test, and I was rather shocked at how my voice boomed inside this empty coffee shop. I was distracted by the sound of my own voice, and I was concerned that I was freaking out the servers. Because of all this, my voice ended up sounding strained and unnatural. But all was not lost in terms of my microphone testing. Later in the day, I found the energy to complete test number 3, noisy outdoor environment with traffic. At exactly 4 in the afternoon, I packed up the necessary equipment and I walked down to Mesot's main street. I knew that the afternoon rush hour would be in full swing. I walked along the street until I found a particularly busy section where I could conduct my tests. It was exactly the type of place where I might normally record a YouTube vlog. It took about an hour, I guess, to then run the tests. I simply attached the first microphone, and then I walked along the busy street for a block and a half while speaking. At the end, I turned around and went back to my starting point. I then switched to a different microphone and then walked down the same section and recorded the same basic speech. I did that 10 times and I was done. I also recorded my introduction in that setting. Welcome to the learning curve. I'm Doug. This is my planet, and when I learn, you learn. Cheesy? Perhaps, but I enjoy it. I like sweeping my arm around me when I say, this is my planet. I'm indicating that everything you see around me is my world, and I point at myself and then at the camera lens when I talk about who is learning. I was not inhibited in the slightest in this setting. I was now out in my regular world, and I was able to concentrate on doing the tests properly. The whole process went smoothly, and I've already edited the video clips into a nice package along with photographic illustrations and title cards. Today, I will record a conclusion. More importantly, I learned a lot about which microphones work the best. And that is the ultimate goal of all this testing. I really want to know for my own benefit how this camera works and which microphones I should use. Shooting a learning curve video at the same time is kind of secondary. Well, it is time for me to review my schedule for the day. I have a lot of things I want to get done, and I want to review my to-do list. The big question remains whether a trip to Sukhothai is going to take place or not. It should take place. All systems are go for that trip. Even the weather is cooperating to an extent. I'm hesitating for 2 reasons. One reason is that I'm so excited about this new camera. I could easily spend the next week learning about it and shooting the associated learning curve videos. The other reason is that I'm a bit confused about how to document this scooter trip on video for my Planet Doug channel. I've reached the point where taking video of a scooter trip is problematic. I keep thinking, what's the story? What's the story when you simply strap your backpack to a scooter and ride somewhere for 4 hours or 8 hours? What's interesting about that experience for a viewer? How do you tell that story? I'm kind of struggling with that. But I do have a secret weapon to galvanize myself into scooter action: the Relive app. It would be so much fun to ride from Sept to Sam now or Tac City tomorrow and record that trip through the Relive app. Thinking about that gets me excited. And that could be enough to get me packing today and on the road tomorrow morning. The key to accomplishing this is to not get distracted. I have to make sure that leaving tomorrow is my main goal. With that in my mind, I need to schedule my time today properly. If I spend all day on my learning curve videos, I won't go anywhere tomorrow. I won't feel ready. I have to schedule my day such that I leave time for packing and organizing for this trip and create opportunities for getting excited about it. By that, I mean I have to open up Google Maps in satellite view and look at the road through the mountains and imagine the realities of the trip and all the great experiences there will be along the way.